I think this should be part 12 of the series on this Gilbert long drop Octogon clock. And this video is going to cover lubrication. I've already off camera lubricated the strike side of the movement, and we'll oil the time side here together. I want to go over the points though on the strike side, the places that should receive lubrication and what kind of lubrication. For the 10 pivots, I used this type of oil here. This is a Zoom spout by Diversitech. It's a 10 weight oil. Very good stuff. I did not use it out of this bottle. Instead, I used it in this old needle bottle. This is an old LaBelle 105 bottle that was used for oiling model railroad trains back in the mid to late 1980s on our railroad layout that we had in the attic. And for the mainspring and for a couple sliding points that I'm going to point out, I used, and this is a first for me, Mobil 1 full synthetic 0W40. And I did not, of course, use it in this container. I used it in this oil can here. And I want to say a word about these oil cans. If you go antiquing, like the kind of places where you'd find these clocks, you'll often find oil cans for sale. And if you find them at reasonable prices, like I gave $5 for this one, grab them. This can here, I usually keep oil in it. I've rinsed it out to put the Mobil 1 synthetic oil in. Usually I'd have 10 weight oil in it. I've got another one here, very appropriately colored, just plain silver. I keep kerosene in this can, and any time I need to put kerosene on moving parts to help them loosen up, sewing machines particularly, I use this bottle here. And I just keep refilling it as needed, and the end has gotten buggered up a little bit from trying to drip oil kerosene on moving parts, but it still works great. Once again, another $5 find, just the perfect size. If you find these little guys, pick them up. They make very, very handy dispensers for dispensing oil. So with that intro out of the way, let's look at the places on the strike side, the oil, first, before we go to the time side. Of course, we have the 10 pivots. There's 5 arbors in the strike side with 2 pivots each, so those all got the 10 weight oil. There are 2 places in the strike side that you can either use the Mobil 1 or you can use some light grease. I went ahead and used the Mobil 1 just to keep the lubricants in this simple. And I don't know how well this is going to show up. You might need an auxiliary light to illuminate this. The tail of the hammer there, can you see it? Where it contacts the lifting pins. You put just a little smear of oil on that, the 10 weight oil, or grease. I used the 10 weight oil in this case, and then ran it through enough cycles to make sure it was distributed on both lifting pins. And you should see that right there. This is on the hammer. You see that little wire there that contacts that center post? I put just a drop of oil on that. Also the Mobil 0W40 synthetic. You could use some light grease there, but I used the oil. So that's, again, the other location is the hammer tail. The end of the hammer tail right there where it contacts the lifting pins. We start this up here and let it run slowly. See right there? The part of the hammer tail where it contacts those lifting pins. Just put a little bit of that 0W40 there. And put a little bit there. And then put the 0W40 synthetic on the mainsprings. And what I did was, I will do this on the time slide. Put some on there just as it is, then start winding it up to take the clamp off. Continue putting it on there, making sure to hold the movement like this to help it wick through the spring. Wind the spring almost all the way up, let it down, check it for chugging, add a little bit more, and this just, you don't want to have so much on there that it drips out, but you want the spring to obviously not be dry. Okay, on the time side, oiling is just a little different. We're going to do the pivots just like before. And I'm off camera priming the needle oiler to just put a little touch on each one of these. Now some of these arbors don't have oil sinks, so how much you actually put on there is kind of vague, and I try to make sure there's an ample amount on these larger bushings there. Put a drop there, and drop there. Okay, that should have been all of them. Did this one get any? Did I skip that one? I bet I didn't. Put a drop there again anyway, just in case. And flip it over. Do a drop there. A drop there. Drop there. 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 Interesting that the only pivot on the back plate that has an oil sink is the escape wheel. Okay, back on the front. Get this in frame better. This is the pin that the verge plays on, and we're going to put a drop there. And then every other tooth of the escape wheel is going to get... Oops, that's not every other tooth, is it? Every other tooth is going to get a drop of oil. Actually, I'm putting a little bit more than a drop. I'm kind of wiping each tooth. This is the only gear wheel in a clock that actually gets any oil, is the escape wheel. And I lost track of which one I was on. I think that one got it last. I might be adding a little bit too much, but it's not much really. Okay, it looks like I've got them all. Wipe my finger off. And at this point, then we can install the verge. This long piece here is called the crutch. That's the fork at the end of the crutch that the pendulum rod goes through. A lot of people say to put a little drop of oil there or a dab of grease. So in that case, it would be appropriate to use the 0W40 synthetic. Basically, I'm using 0W40 as a substitute for grease, but the quantity is very small. We're talking a drop. You know, we're not... If you were using grease, the quantity would be similarly small. It'd be about the equivalent to a drop or so. Just a tiny smear on the end of a toothpick. Okay. Don't apply oil from this side. Obviously, you don't want to make a mess. Apply it from the other side. Try to hold the movement roughly horizontal. kind of watch it. You'll see where the coils are loose, you'll see that wick down. Just put a tiny amount there where the center coils are loose. Now, this part is up to you, how confident you feel about the rest of the repairs you may have done. We didn't repair any of the clicks on this because the clicks were all in good shape. So, if you're confident, you can use the regular winding key to wind the clock. If you're kind of concerned that the winding click might let go at you at any time, I'd use the letdown key. You won't break your thumb, and if you don't hear a nice click, click, click as you're winding, if that goes away, you can control the situation. But it looks like the oil that I put on there has seeped into the coils. So, not holding the movement this way, but trying to hold it on its side to keep the oil from running back out. And go ahead and start winding. Okay, and at this point, kind of watch it a little bit. See if we need to add a few more drops of oil. Okay. Not putting a whole lot on there. And then I'm going to wind again. I'm going to watch the coils here, and I'm going to see if I see any binding or thumping as it winds up. Get it wound up enough that the we can get rid of this. Okay. Starting to look. And look, we bumped the strike side. It went off on us. Apply some more. Right there where it's bunched up tight. You see that? And there. I'm just putting little bits. Not much. Go sparingly. You don't want to end up with a big puddle of oil on the back side of the great wheel. There's a lot of debate, too, about whether or not you should oil the clicks or anything. Some people say yeah, some people say no. So it's kind of up to you. Okay. See, I've got some oil oozing out right there. So let's just hold it like this and see if it'll soak back in. We've probably got enough on this. We can go ahead and wind it most of the way up. And really, there should be enough capillary action that we can lay it down here. And look at that. Very, very, compared to the video 1, look how energetic that is. Look how energetic that is. Isn't that amazing? Look at the motion on that escape wheel. See the... Very energetic. Okay, so let's continue on. See, look at that. All the oil has wicked up into the spring. Got it wound up to where it's just about fully wound. And luckily, the click is in about the right spot where we can disengage the return spring. And we can let it down a little bit here. Okay. A little fast because we're looking for jumps. We're looking for evidence that we need to add more oil. At this point, I'm going to switch over to a regular key. Also going to move this up so I'm not bumping it so much. Okay, that went all the way up to the top without really feeling like it was binding or anything. Nice and smooth. Got a little bit of oil coming out, not much. That's pretty good. See, the strike side looks pretty good. Strike side is one in particular where you don't want to hear that spring chugging or thudding as the clock strikes. Because if it does make any noise, the case is going to amplify it greatly. Okay, I like that. Once again, we're gonna let the time side down, cycle it through. We'll do it a little bit slower this time so we can watch for any chugging or thudding on that mainspring, okay? Because this thing's going to be going slow. We want to know if it's going to... You hear it? So we've got some... These springs were pretty nice shapes. We've obviously got some dry spots. And I can see where they are right there. So let's go ahead and park that. And flip the movement over. And add a little bit of oil into that area there. See it, take it right in. Okay. Check that the spring is on there. Let's wind that a little bit. Okay. Let it back down a little bit. Get the oil distributed in there. Let it down quite a way. Even though there's not a retainer on there, we're not taking it apart like we had previously, you know. I think it's actually easier just to do that by hand. And look at that, even with it unwound as far as it is, it's fluttering about like it did when it was dirty. You see how far down the mainspring is? It's almost totally unwound. Okay, give it one more dosing of oil here and there, just a little bit, especially these center coils. Wind it back up a little. Just part on that image right there. I think I've drugged this video out more than long enough. You should get the general idea of what's going on by now. So the next video should be casing the movement back up, and after that we'll hang the clock on the wall and run it. So, I don't think anything I can say could match what's going on right there in front of us. So let's just watch that for a moment before I turn the camera off. This is Oklahoma Bridges. I hope you've enjoyed this video series. Thanks for watching.